Hello, and thank you for joining us. We are back with a new spotlight feature on the Novel Creature Network here with Jolee Maupin. And I'm so excited to have her here today. She is the founder and the owner of Satisfiction Box and Bookshop. Thank you so much for being on here today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I was seriously over the moon when you sent me an email inviting me. So I'm just so excited to have a conversation with you.
So I have a confession. So I've been watching your box for a while. So when you put that, I think you put the call out there on Threads. I was like, oh my God, this is my sign. So thank you so much. I am really, really happy to have you here today and appreciate you for being here. And to everyone watching, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe, to share, and spread the word about everything we're going to talk about today, because we need more support for this amazing platform that she is building. So thank you again. Now, one of the things here that we believe on the Novel Creature Network and just in our community is that our stories, both the ones that we read, write, but more importantly, the ones that we live, are powerful instruments that can change and save lives. And you are out there doing the thing. So this makes you a hero in our book here. So
I don't know if I feel like one, but thank you.
You are out there doing the work. And I'm so excited to talk about that. And so we're going to dig right in and tell us, what is your hero origin story? How did you get to where you're at now? What made you want to start this?
Wow. So, when I think about it, I've talked to like people in my family about this. I think ultimately starting Satisfiction was a bit of like timing, luck, and then also being at a point in my life where I was like wanting to do the opposite of things I had always done.
Right.
And so to give some like context, because you know how things go, there's always a bunch of different kind of threads that intertwine and then leads you to the final point. But in 2020, COVID happened. At the time, I was a college student and I was also a preschool teacher. And so with the COVID shutdowns, I wasn't able to work. And so during that time, it was the first time in a while, because you can imagine like school, working, like just busy all the time. It was the first time I just really had free time to think, to think about stuff. At the time, I was on like poetry Instagram. So I was on that community. But 2020 happened and I slowly shifted to Bookstagram. And it's just talking about origin story is really funny because you'll see everything connects. But I joined Bookstagram, started posting about the books I was reading, and a girl reached out to me, and that happened to be Anna Sabrana, the author of Lord of the Wilds. And she was like, hey, I love your page. At the time, I think she didn't have very many followers. I didn't have very many. She had more followers than me, but I was like, who is this girl reaching out to me? But she was like, hey, I'm going to start like a BIPOC bookworm group chat on Instagram. Do you want to join? And I was like, yes, I want to join. So that was my introduction to just the BIPOC book community, really the Black book community. And it completely just, sometimes you don't realize how starved of representation you are until you find that community. And for me personally, to give brief context on like my background, I'm adopted, grew up in Texas, surrounded by a lot of whiteness, basically. And so being able to find this community really, like, I think it saved my life, because it was the first time where I didn't feel other or different or weird. I had people I could share, the joys of reading with, and other people who understood inherently like why representation was important and why reading is just such a beautiful thing to do. And, summer 2020 happened with George Floyd. And I think we can all agree, like, the anger I felt at that time, I felt really hopeless because, it's like same story, different day, keeps happening. And I remember feeling so angry and frustrated. And from that, within the Bookstagram community, conversation about the lack of diversity in book boxes and publishing at large started happening. And if anyone who was around on Bookstagram during that time, I mean, like, these conversations were really happening. I remember publishers were having like town halls sort of meetings about this, about how they were going to do so much better. We can get into that in a second, but a lot of, white flagging was going on, like, oh, but we're great, And so within the Black Bookworm chat I was in, I was in 2 at the time, but discussion about the lack of representation in book boxes was going on. And I remember a girl in one of the groups has said, like, oh, I can't wait for this book box to like finally get, more diverse. They said they're going to do better. And I remember reading her comment and I got really angry because I just thought, like, why are we waiting for people who have showed us companies, right, that have showed us that they don't really care to start caring? Not saying that people can change. I'm just saying, like, personally, I don't want to give my money to people who have to, like, horrible things have to happen for them to start changing, So from then, like, I'm telling you, girl, I never thought in my life I would be a book box owner, but I just started thinking at the time, the only book box I was subscribed to was I Am Black Lit, which is an amazing book box. They feature more like contemporary Black fiction and also support Black businesses. And that owner really inspired me because she was also a teacher and she decided to, like, hey, I want to go and try to make a difference. So I was feeling inspired by her. On the other side, my partner's sister, she owns a business called Colvon, and it's Black-owned business, and she's always inspired me. Well, during COVID, at this time, she was giving away like grants to people who needed help. And so it was like $1,000 or something like that. And I think maybe it was my partner's mom who said, oh, you should apply for it. I knew I wasn't going to get it, but it was the first time I just really started thinking about, wow, if I had $1,000, because at the time I was in paycheck to paycheck, I was like, what would I do with it? Because typically I would just go, spend that money. But I just started thinking about how I felt about the book industry. And if I had money, like, how could I make change? Because people around me, like my partner's sister, she was making a positive change with her business. And so I was like, I want to like do something that could make change. Then we got the stimulus checks. So rather than spending that, I decided, I'm going to use this money and reinvest it into what is now Satisfiction. And I would say I felt really angry. I had no idea about the book box business. So I'm telling into it completely not knowing what to expect. But I felt so angry that I'm a person who works really great off of spite. So I was like, all these people are saying that Black books don't sell and that, they're just acting like they're diverse, but they're not. Like, I'm going to go prove them. So that was kind of the energy I was going off of. And about by April of 2021 is when I finally launched, because I did there's no information really online. So the research part was a bit slow, but by 2021 is when I finally launched. And now I'm here and I'm like, I'm here for the ride. Like, I'm telling you, like, the first special edition I ever owned was from my business. It was blood marked with purple sprayed edges, like everything. I get messages all the time being like, this is the first, special edition I've owned. And it makes me so happy because it's like, I'm just as excited.
See, and that's why I say you're a hero. There's things that, and you dropped on so many things. You touched on so many things, like just in that amount of time. Number one, like how you keep seeing these cycles happening, in the news with George Floyd, even in the book box or in the book world, the publishing world, you keep seeing the same cycles of, there's an issue, there's outrage, oh, we're going to do better. And I think that speaks, it's not so much, and maybe it's not so much that they don't care, it's that it's not prioritized.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. I think people see it, but because it may be uncomfortable, you have to like change your patterns, your behaviors, which is something, it's uncomfortable when you have to change doing things the way that you're used to doing and acknowledging that, hey, maybe you didn't get it all right. So I love how you bring that up. But then also I want to touch on how when we see these cycles and patterns, how it's something to, I think it's a certain strength to not get desensitized to it. because it does hurt when you see like the violence and the helplessness, when you see these cycles that aren't changing, to just kind of turn your brain off and say, you know what, I'm gonna compartmentalize that and put that over there. It takes a certain strength to acknowledge that. And so, yes, you are definitely a hero, because what I'm hearing is you took that outrage, you took that fuel, and you channeled it into something that can help our community. Because I noticed on your website, you talk about how some of the money that you use goes towards funding literacy and funding different things like that, and the importance of literacy, which I don't think
literacy rates are dropping. Like, it's crazy. Like, my favorite part when I was a preschool teacher was watching a child gain confidence when they just learned how to write their name, right? Or reading. Like, those really small things you don't realize are so fundamental for the rest of their lives. And like, even talking about literacy, like with Idaho passing that bill where kids can't go into libraries anymore without an adult. And it's just, it's so wild to me, because like the library is a needed third space. Like, for me as a kid, that was my second home. That was my safe haven. And when I got older, it was the place where I went to learn, to research. Like, as I said, like, I was adopted into a white family. And because of that, there were a lot of times, even now, where certain family members could be very dismissive, not understand my perspective on, not even my perspective, people of color's perspective on stuff. And so we'd get into arguments. And I remember as a teen going to the library, and I'd go to the nonfiction section. And that's where I really started diving into Black history, right? And I remember I would write down facts. I'd go home. I'd be like, I'm so ready for this next argument. Now I'm older, I realize, okay, that was kind of traumatic. But that sort of thing made me also fall in love with English and wanting to get my degree in English and loving to write, like developing a thesis and all that stuff. So it's just, it's wild.
Yeah, I mean, so what you're doing, it's definitely needed. And, you bring up such a good point, how, now our children, their freedoms, and just in general, like all the banned books that we're seeing, all these laws that are being passed, how, a lot of communities, they don't have the funding that they need for literacy. So, thank you. Thank you so much for bringing awareness to that. And then just also, taking just all the things that have occurred. And it's interesting because I think a lot of us indie creatives, especially, and business owners, we stepped out kind of around that 2020 period. You spoke on having that time to kind of think, like, what am I doing, and just reassessing and reevaluating. I tell everyone who mentions 2020 as their like origin year, we really need to come up with a name for that. Like, how like we have the Renaissance period. Like, what do we call ours?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like almost like a Renaissance, really, where I think, despite all these terrible things happening, that so many people had at least a moment to think about themselves, because I remember just feeling, what's the word? Like, sometimes, just your brain's just overloaded with stuff. So you don't have time to even think about yourself, or like what you really want, what you really want.
Yeah, so I totally agree. It is like a renaissance. So I love that. You took that energy, you took that fuel, you found your inspiration. Now you're doing your thing. We've got this amazing book box and bookshop. You've got an amazing platform you're building. What would you say is your creative superpower? What's your flex?
I think so. When I was in high school, so initially when I was planning on going into college, I was going to go into graphic design. In high school, the school district I was at had like a technical center. So I did 4 years of graphic design and was able to, I guess my teacher was amazing because we did like kind of internships with different companies. And I really thought I was going to go to college for that. But in high school, I got a bit depressed and lost a lot of passion for graphic design, even though that was kind of like, I would say graphic design has always been my like special interest growing up, but I got really depressed and kind of lost my passion for it. But this business, my favorite part of this business is the creative design part. I love working with the artists. I love, like, I was never a big annotator before I started this business, but now when I'm reading books, You know, I'm not necessarily annotating quotes. I love it's more like the visual imagery and like things that stick out. So when I'm talking to the artist, I have things to give them. And I love the whole process, like creating a vision board and, you know, having that back and forth with the artist and then going back to the author and asking them for their feedback. Like I think that's my happy place with this business. And I think, I guess it's a creative superpower. I don't know. I also think my anxiety is a superpower because when you're anxious, you plan. So I'm very organized.
Can I say thank you for that? And I know some people don't like when we take like things that are, you know, perceived as struggles or challenges and turn them into like, oh, it's the superpower.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is like it can. I think sometimes when you deal with challenges or things like that, because I'm a very anxious person.
Yeah.
It does, you know, I think it's how you perceive it. And
Yeah.
so I love that you say that, you know, you're taking something that's seen as a challenge. You're finding those things that actually make it work, you know?
Yeah.
And I agree. Yeah. When you have like that anxiousness, it does help you to be like, really prepared.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's the one thing with like owning a business is like where anxiety is a little bit of a pro is like your anxiety is you being afraid for the future, but with the business you have to plan for the future. So
right, it works out.
Yeah. But I try to be cognizant of when it's like, okay, what I'm feeling anxious about actually like based in like a real fear or something I need to do, or is it just like my body having some sort of reaction? So self-care, like I promote self-care because self-care is really serious to me too. Like I don't play with my self-care. If I'm feeling bad, I'm like, you know what? I can't run this business if I'm feeling bad. So I'm gonna go take a bath and read a book, you know? So
And that's the truth, because that's a hard lesson I've been learning lately. You know, again, change is uncomfortable, right?
yeah.
And really paying attention to those truths that you don't really want to pay attention to. But self-care is so important and you want to do all the things. And I think when you're passionate about your work, sometimes it doesn't feel like work until like you're laid out somewhere. And
Yeah.
so that's so important, you know, finding that balance, you know, and so that's amazing. And on that note, because you do mention self-care as well in Satisfiction. And so let's dive deeper into like what's in the box. How did you decide to mix fiction, particularly speculative fiction, and now you've branched out into horror, right?
Yeah.
Well, how did you decide to marry fiction with
Yeah.
self-care, which honestly, I mean, I totally get it. It's amazing. But I want to hear like how did you develop that?
Well, really, this is just what I do. Like, I can promise 2020, like my self-care routine is essentially what is in the box. You know what I mean? Like I feel very lucky that my business is a complete reflection of my interests. Like I've always really been into skincare. During 2020, I got really into like I got a bath caddy using the bath bombs. Like I got really deep into that. So I feel like when I decided to okay, what would be in the box? To me, it was a bit of like a no-brainer, but also one of the reasons for it is because one of the main complaints I see about book boxes that people have is, you know, the stuff being in the box, they don't feel like it's useful or it's just kind of like it piles up really quick. So I wanted the items in the box to one, be quality items, but also be things like you can use. And if you don't want to use it, you can give it to someone else, you know, like they are things that can be used and they don't have to pile up unless you really, you know, you're stockpiling for like a really good day. But yeah, I think this box is just a really huge reflection of my interest. And that's a blessing to be able to say that.
And I think that's beautiful too. And I want to use that to encourage any of our creatives, any of our dreamers out there who are looking to launch, whether it's a business, a book, whatever the case may be. You know, we all have our novel creatures are all full of dreams. We're all full of things that we want to do either for ourselves or community or the world at large. And so, you know, be genuine to who you are. Don't try to like conform yourself to be acceptable to everybody. That's when you get like generic stuff, you know, but really just be you.
Do
And
what you want, and there's going to be other people who want that too. Before I did launch the box, at the time I was kind of thinking of having it be a bunch of different genres, like not having one specific genre. But as I did more research, I realized like it kind of overwhelmed me, because really the main genres I do read are science fiction, fantasy, and then I do read some thriller, which is why we added that in there. But I remember there was a time where I was thinking of like also having it have contemporary books, romance books, but I felt at the time, because I don't read those books as much, that it just wasn't going to feel as authentic for me, and maybe in the future we'll include those books. I think maybe hopefully, in the future when I have a team and I have someone who is dedicated about those genres, to me that makes sense. But right now, just kind of going with what I know best.
And that's amazing too. I love how you said, like, when you look at the box, when you look into the box, it's everything that represents what you love and what you're passionate about. And that's so important. Do what you're passionate about, and you'll be able to sustain that. Do what's in your bandwidth. You recognize that maybe adding other things might be a little overwhelming, or you might not be able to sustain that. And so I think that's awesome. And I think truly, when you're genuine, you find your people, that cuts back on the haters. Everybody knows what to expect. And so there's really no disappointment, because you're giving just what you said you would. And I love that, because everything that you have in your box is like everything that I live for. So I'm excited to subscribe and to support, like, and spread the word, because it's amazing. But along with that, because, and I think, hearing you say that when you were first researching and looking into this, there wasn't that much news or that much information online. And so can you tell us kind of like what your kryptonite is, what your creative kryptonite is? Talk about like we talked about your triumphs a little bit. What about your challenges in this process?
I think, I guess like, I'm very happy that when we look at the book box world now, there's so many more boxes that have great representation. But back in 2020, the only boxes, it was really small, there wasn't as many boxes at the time. And even if you're to go Google like how to start a book box or subscription box, there's not a lot of information. So I remembered back in 2020, like scrolling down to the very beginning of like Fairy Loot's page, like their Instagram page, because I was like, I want to know how they launched. Like, how did they launch? I did that for a lot of book boxes. So I was like, let me just analyze how they launched and how they did things, and kind of obviously did it the way I wanted to. But I felt like researching was like, I really had to get context clues. You know what I mean? Like grab a little context clues and kind of put it all together. But there was no one around to guide me. And that made my first year really difficult, because when you're entering in an industry where it's already kind of like, I mean, everyone knows publishing is super slow at replying, but there's also this kind of like weird exclusivity mindset sometimes with publishers, right? And publishers really don't have small businesses in mind. Like, it's actually incredible to me the way I am treated now by publishers, now that I've grown a little bit compared to my first year, when nothing has changed. I've done the same thing. But in 2020, I remember not getting any replies from publishers. I remember also like there was this one agent, I reached out to this author that I really loved. And they always say, be careful about meeting your hero sort of thing. But the agent was like, what makes this book deserve to be in your box? It was really like jarring. I was like, what is this sort of like attitude I'm going to be getting the whole time when I'm just trying to buy books? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it was just so crazy to me. But thank God that for our second box, which was September, not second box. Was it second box? Sorry, it's all muddled. Basically, Atria Books, we featured one of their books, and an associate marketer who also was a person of color, she was like, hey, do you want to set up a call? And at the time, I was having to order books through Ingram, which is a book distributor for people who don't know, because publishers were not replying to me, but I was like, I'm going to figure out a way to start this regardless. You know what I mean? But she was like, hey, let's set up a call. And because of her, like, she walked me through so many things. I had no idea how to even go about asking for like signed book plates. Like, I thought you had to purchase signed book plates.
Wow.
I didn't even know what signed tip-in sheets were. You know, I had no idea about anything, like the industry basics, really, because no one teaches you these things. And I think that is really difficult when you're entering it in an industry that's kind of elusive, because it's like you're going in and you're expected to just figure out what the flow is. You know what I mean? And she was a godsend because she just really explained. I don't know if she feels that way, but for me, it was a godsend. Like, she just really explained a lot to me, and it gave me a lot more confidence going forward to ask for things. And my first year was still very rough. Like, there are certain publishers who were interesting, I'll say. Interesting. Like, being called, there's this one publisher that would get my name and another author or color's name constantly mixed up. Like, that sort of like stuff where I'm just like, you know, getting told off for, you know, at the time, like, girl, we could have a whole other podcast about this. It's just, publishing is not made with small businesses in mind. And it was just really tough because I had no idea really about sprayed edges at all, right? My first year of business, we had no sprayed edges. And then luckily I found a company, Bookish Signs, Amber, wonderful, wonderful person who I consistently work with, who sprays the majority of her books. From Annalisa Brana, I found the printer we work with, which is how we do our exclusive editions now. So I've just been really blessed that, like, I've come across people, and people in my life have always been willing to give me some information or to help me when I needed it, which is why I try my best when other businesses reach out to me, especially businesses led by other BIPOC people. Like, let me give what I know, because I know what that feels like. There's no guidebook. I think that is the most frustrating thing. You know?
Definitely. And that says a lot, you know. Number one, step out, you know, and the things that be your authentic self, and the people and the resources you need will come, you know. And I think that's beautiful. Shout out to everybody who helped you, because the work that you are doing, I mean, it's just, guys, when you see these boxes, oh my gosh, it's like luxury. It's bookish luxury. It's the ultimate bookish to yourself.
I appreciate that, because I'm always like, you know, I was telling a friend that, like, I feel like I am my angry customer. I'm really blessed. Like, my customers in whole are very gracious. They're very kind. I don't get really angry emails. You know, I see other bookish businesses, and sometimes their base can be a little bit intense, I'll say. But I feel like my customers are very, like, they're kind of in for the ride with me. Like, they see what I'm trying to do, and they're like, we trust you. And so every single book that in every box, I'm always learning something new or wanting to try something new. So it's like, it's all exciting for me, just as it is for you.
It's awesome. So with this, because you've had some, number one, I want to just give you like your flowers, your roses, because the designs that you have done for these books have just been phenomenal, like just drool worthy. Like, you could stare at like the mock-ups that you post and the pictures that you post, because from the, you know, and I know you said that you do graphic design too, so you know your stuff, but like, oh my gosh, from the covers to the sprayed edges design, you know, because I just I think I did.
I got to give my flowers though to the two artists we typically work with the most. Jordan Ashby, amazing. Lord of the Wilds was his first book cover. That's how I was introduced to him, through Anna. And he's just like, I love watching him grow in his own art, but I love working with him. He designed the September box, Blood and Brujas, and we should be announcing it probably by the time this comes out, we'll probably announce, but our November box is Stars Like Acid by Marissa Lupe. And I can send you the mock-up for that, but it's gorgeous. And he designed that too. And the person who does the majority of our sprayed edges for like the traditionally published books is Victoria Elisa. Sorry if I'm saying your last name wrong, but it's Victoria. She kills it every time. Like, she loves what she does. They both love what they do, and it's a reflection of the stuff they produce. Like, I give them some direction. I mean, Victoria, honestly, I don't really always give Victoria direction. I'm just like, hey, here's the book. And a lot of times it's books she's hyped about too. She's like, yeah, I was waiting for you to ask me about this. And she just kills it every time. And Jordan, you know, we have our own system for things, you know, how we'd go about discussing, but he's highly recommend both of them. If you're ever looking for an artist, they're wonderful to work with.
Gosh. Listen, luxury self-care for bookworms in a box right there. I mean, just gorgeous items. So with that, how do you, I mean, I guess there's two parts to this. How do you find the items, you know, because that in itself, like, you're doing this bi-monthly and you've expanded. So how do you curate these, like, the bookish items? I mean, like, it's one thing, you know, everyone's going to want the book, but how do you do that? Like, does it get old? Like, or do you find that some items work? Like, you know, I know candles were a big kick for one time, but then they're out.
Candles, we have candles in there. I mean, the subscribers love the candles so much. Actually, they're actually they used to be 4 ounces, but now I made them bigger. They're 8 ounces, and I make those in house. So those are made by me, and I just like doing that, you know. I will say, because there was such a long research period before I launched, I mean, this could be a touch of the tism, as I like to call it, but I just really like research. Like, anything research, ask me, and I will make you a full spreadsheet with the details. So during I would say summer 2020 is when the idea initially happened. And then for the next 6 months, all I did was research. So I made a long list of different, like, self-care products, different skincare products, different brands. So I go back to that a lot. And then also there are brands that I really love that we've worked with more than once, because I'm like, y'all have quality items, let's include something else. But it never really gets old. Like, if you look at my camera roll, whenever I go out to a store, I'm like constantly taking pictures of like different skincare or different things that I think people would like, you know. So it's just, you know, it's kind of hard to explain unless you have a special interest. It's kind of hard to explain. You're just in it. You know, you're just like,
it makes sense, because you always need, like, something to moisturize your skin. You always want your lips to look good. So I do see the benefits for that, because it's like, you know, they just looking from the outside in, it's like, man, you do this every month. And every month you've got, like, this quality spread of books, and it literally is Satisfiction. Like, I mean, when you see, like, all the stuff on there, I'm like, oh my gosh, that looks like luxury just in a box. I need that. So, so guys, definitely get on this. Definitely follow, subscribe, and just cheer her on for everything she's got going on. But I love how much dedication you put into the process in building this. Now, so you mentioned how you kind of got the idea for the items. Now, how do you curate? How do you stay on top of the books that you put in? Because the books that you have, it's like, wow. I mean, there's just so many. How do you do that?
So I'm going to break this into 2 parts, because you have the books in the box, and then you have, like, the shop, you know, shop books. I'll say since the limited editions in the box it's a bit more lengthy of a process, but the one-time shop items you can find, like the books, you know, we post where everyone can buy those. Really, that comes down to just books I see that I really want to see. A lot of this is based down on my interest. I'm like, oh, I really want to read that. I'm seeing other people who are subscribers want to read it, because I get recommendations all the time from subscribers, but there may not be room in the box because they only do 6 boxes a year. So I'm like, okay, we'll put that in the shop. You know, it's a bit, I would say choosing the books for the limited editions are a bit easier, just because the process is a bit different. You know, it's kind of like, what am I seeing that people are talking about and that I'm also interested in? Like, it's kind of like a little prize for me too, you know, that other people want to, you know, read. But for the books in the box, that process is very different, because, you know, I have to read those books. There's no way I can do the exclusive editions without reading them. So I think for that, like, interesting you bring this up now, because right now Satisfiction is kind of shifting. And basically like going forward up until pretty much have 2025 all planned out almost. I have like 2 more boxes I'm looking to fill, but they're all going to be indie books, like indie exclusive editions, because I found that the subscription box is the best platform I can offer for BIPOC indie authors. And when we talk about like the need for representation in publishing, but also equity, I think sometimes indie authors get left out of the conversation, especially BIPOC indie authors. So I've just found like that is my best platform I can have for them. And on top of that, I'm able to create these beautiful exclusive editions. And I just want to give indie authors their flowers, because I really feel like indie books are the trendsetters. I don't know what to say other than that. You know, that's why publishing is picking up so many indie books. And right now, the problem I'm having is I opened up like an author interest form, and I'm almost like kind of overwhelmed because I got a lot of people applied for that. So I'm trying to like, okay, how do I go down and narrow, you know, which books to do? I'm also a mood reader and kind of a slow reader. So it's a lot. But when I come down to it, if I read a book, I like it, and I think other subscribers would like to read it, then it's chosen. And I do try to also be cognizant of like representation within the book. This past year, there were so many wonderful sapphic stories and queer stories that were coming out that I was really excited to feature. And going into next year, hoping to do the same, not just with like queer books, but also just like, just more representation in general. Like next year, we have a book where the MC has vitiligo, and we have another book where one of the MCs is deaf. So it's like, I try to be cognizant of different areas of representation, you know?
And that's a good, I don't want to say it's a problem, but it's a good problem to have when it's like, oh my gosh, there's so many wonderful gems out there to pick, you know, which one do I pick? And that's why I wanted to like ask you, because like the picks that you have, you know, a lot of times, you know how you have the same books that are kind of circulating. I love how your selections aren't like that. And even if it does pick up speed later, it's like one of the first places that I've seen certain recs before it gets popular. So again, thank you for taking the time and really, delving into there to find different diverse gems. Because like you said, there's so many amazing books. And then also, it really warms my heart that you are turning towards the indie community as well. I know it's hard just for BIPOC authors in general to navigate the publishing space. But a lot of times we don't even get the opportunities to really like navigate these traditional space, or these spaces that the traditional market has kind of cornered. And book boxes are one of those. Like some book boxes will tell you, like, we don't do indie authors. We're starting to see that change. We are starting to see that change now, because like you said, I think, bookish platforms are starting to see that there is more variety, I want to say, and there's more style and nuances. But just thank you.
And I do want to add to that too. Like when I spoke about how small publishing doesn't have small businesses in mind, a lot of people don't know this, but like publishing, like just to give some context. So you know how we do like the sprayed edges on the traditional books. Well, that's like a workaround. Like that's something that, we purchase the standard edition from the publisher, and then we spray that ourselves. So the publisher is not spraying these. This is us like outsourcing that. Now, if we wanted the publisher to spray the edges and do cool in-paper art or new dust jacket and foil, like all the works, as I call it, most publishers starting order minimum is $2,000. There's one publisher I know where their starting is $5,000. So that's just not sustainable at all for really any small bookish business I know, other than the really major book boxes that have that volume and those numbers. So I think so I think that's one reason why we're starting to see more boxes being inclusive to indie authors, because they're realizing like, okay, publishing obviously, like, They want to have these high order minimums. Let me go work with a fantastic indie author where I can work with them and still create a beautiful edition. And on top of that, I can pay the author directly for the royalties. Like, that's my favorite part, being able to be like, here's the money. Like, I'm paying you. Like, I'm talking to the author directly. That's something I really like.
Right. Yeah. And then just on that, because you mentioned like a part of what it takes to get like the sprayed edges and to do all that, there's been some discussion about like special editions and costs. Why does it cost so much? But when you look at all the work that goes into it, like, this is a labor of love and intricacy. It literally, you're literally paying for a luxury.
Right. I was in my like 90-degree garage spraying the bottoms of Masquerade yesterday. So yeah, like basically, at least for us, like what I do is I get the main edge outsourced by Bookish Signs typically, and then I spray the top and bottom. I don't think I've ever really posted about that online, but yeah, it's a labor of love. It really is a labor of love. And a lot of the times these small businesses, their prices are a bit higher because, one, resellers, and also because it is truly limited. They're not selling thousands of books. Like my max right now for our limited editions in our shop, it used to be like 250, 300, which was a lot. But now that subscriptions have grown so much, I've lowered that number to about like 100. So it's truly limited. Like if you have it, you're like normally, 1 out of 100 people who have that,
Yeah, that's real talk. Yeah, so they're priced correctly. They are, yeah. If you want those nice, pretty books, hey.
Yeah. And the UV printers that these small bookish businesses have, they cost money, like money. I'm like this close to maybe buying one, but what's holding me back is like, it's like a high 5-figure investment, it's like crazy. So yeah.
Yeah, they're beautiful, but that's why they're called special limited editions.
Yeah.
For a reason, and you should and will pay. But with that, we always ask a novel creature question. Let us know, novel creatures, what your favorite book box items are. And you may find them, you probably will find them in Satisfiction. So, especially if you're looking for good self-care items, there's nothing like a good lotion, a good candle, a good moisturizer. Oh, don't get me started with the bath salts.
Yeah, you just got to pamper yourself sometimes.
All the smell goods. So let us know. But yeah, like so much love goes into your boxes and everything like that. And there was a question I had for you, but can you tell us? Now, we kind of touched on it a little bit. You talked about how the books that you put in your box are books that you love and enjoy. So what's on your Satisfiction wish list? You said you're going to be kind of like scoping out some indies. I've seen your work with Michaela Di Hernato with the Brujas, the Blood and Brujas, I think it was called. Gorgeous illustrations, gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. She's amazing. So I'm excited to see that. But what are some of the genres or the subgenres or authors that are on your kind of like watch list? Who would you love to work with?
I think naturally I tend to gravitate towards fantasy. That's like, I love urban paranormal fantasy. So anything like that. I will say, like, I've been focusing a bit more on growing the subscriptions because I do want to get to a point where I can do these really cool special editions with publishers. Like, trust me, like that is kind of when I go to sleep at night, that's my goal. And y'all will know the minute that happens, because the first book, God willing, that would be the book that it would be the 5th season by N.K. Jeminsin. Like, I want to make a special edition of that book so badly. Like, since I started this business, I had 3 authors I really, really wanted to collaborate and do something cool with. First was Tracy Deonn, check, which is really cool that you would say that. Octavia Butler, we just did Kindred, and hopefully next year we'll be able to do a couple more limited editions of her novels. Amazing author, check, we did that. And the third author was N.K. Jeminsin. Like, she is one of those authors where if I were to meet her in person, I would probably cry or just like not even know what to say, because She is so incredible. And there was a point where I was talking to the publisher about doing something. Like they very well know how interested I am. So I'm just like very diligently really focusing on growing the subscription base. So then I can do something cool and subscribers will know, because fifth season will be in there, followed by, you know, the other books. But that's kind of my main motivator, which is like, people ask like, what keeps you motivated? I'm like, I'm literally really trying to reach this goal for this book. I love it so much.
If you're watching, or if you guys are watching this and you know, and you talk to her.
Yeah. So I also think I do want to give a shout out to, if you're into like romance, there is a new book box called Cover Snob Book Box. The owner, JJ, actually, I guess I would consider her my friend, but I guess technically I'm her mentee, which sounds really weird to say. But a while ago, she reached out to me about wanting to start a book box. She had a plan. She already had a plan. She just needed some help. So she recently launched subscriptions for that. So if you're into romance, I would really, really implore you to go check out Cover Snob Book Box. The owner, JJ, is very, very passionate about romance. So
definitely, thank you for that. So we'll try to include that in our notes here for the captions as well. So yeah, that leads kind of into the next thing. So you've kind of mentioned, and you mentioned it in your bio too, so I snagged some of that. We have a book club on Fable, and I also love to feature recommendations in our IG broadcasts and just in general for people who are looking for good speculative fiction books. That's what I do here. I read it, I write it, I recommend it. I love it. So along those lines, you mentioned fifth season, which is actually one of the, we're currently in the middle of deciding what we're going to read for our book club for August.
Yeah.
And right now we're actually, so I use some of your favorites as one of the features. And so I think we had Legendborn on there. We had fifth season, which we may end up reading. A lot of people are like, yeah, let's read that. So if you get this special edition for that, oh my gosh.
I'm telling you, I will find a way. Like, I found a way this far with this business. I will find a way. Like, it will happen. I can't give an exact time, but it will happen, because I never expected to be where I am now. So I'm full throttle, ready to get to wherever I need to go.
Yeah, so. I think you're going to have a lot of happy customers with that. So that may actually be our read for this month.
I'm a stand for the fifth season. Have you read the fifth season?
No, this will actually be my first time. It's one of those classics that I've had on the list forever.
Your mind's going to be blown.
So I'm excited.
Your mind is blown. It's so good. Like, she is a master at her craft. Like, everything in the book is done with intention. The whole series is beautiful. I mean, she is the only author to win, you know, a Hugo Award consecutively for every single book. I think they changed the rules after that, because she just kept winning.
And you can't change. Don't hate the game. You don't hate the player or the game. Yeah. Well, if it's good, it's good. Let her win.
And I don't know why more book boxes haven't done a special edition with her, because I'm like, this is so incredible. I could go on about it forever.
I mean, like, I think it's going to happen this year, and if not this year, probably next year. It's going to happen. I can't wait to see you announce that, because it's going to happen. It's kind of one of those things where it's only a matter of time.
I hope. Like, I'm so serious. Like, when I feel stressed out, that's what I think about. Like, I don't know. I just have like a certain visualization in my head. A certain visualization in my head.
I love it.
Things, you know, things should go. And like, in my head, I'm like, I'm not going to be satisfied till this happens. So
would you say that that's what are your top 3 recs? Would fifth season be?
Oh, for sure. The fifth season. You know, I knew you were going to ask this question, and so I was thinking about it, and I'm like, it's so hard to answer this question because there's so many amazing books. But if you're into sci-fi, like fantasy, I'd say the fifth season. If you are like a nonfiction girly, or you like to read nonfiction, I don't read a ton of nonfiction, but my favorite nonfiction book is Asada by Asada Shakur. A lot of amazing, her story is incredible, but also there's a lot of great poetry in there. If you love urban, like paranormal fantasy, like romantasy, The Book of Azrael by Amber Nicole.
Yes.
That is like hands down the best, one of the best slow burns. Enemies, like truly enemies to lovers, like great story. I'm making my way through book 3 right now. And then, yeah, I think those are the ones I would suggest. And then, like, of course, like Legendborn by Tracy Deonn, if you like YA. So,
and the newest one is, I think she just showed the cover for that. It's, oh my gosh.
I didn't see it. Oh my gosh, I need to go. I need to go look.
But it's absolutely gorgeous. So that's coming soon too. But yeah, those are awesome recs. And like I said, like just everything that you curate looks amazing. So guys, when you're watching this, just go ahead, open another tab. And if you have to pause, go ahead and subscribe now, because it's just all amazing. So you talked about your wish list there. Now we, of course, go ahead and subscribe and buy the box and do all the things. I've got her information here for you, rolling across the screen. You can follow on Instagram. You can also check out her website where you can find all the information. But tell us how we can best celebrate and support you and your work. Outside of course, subscribing and spreading the word. What's something that just really encourages you and adds fuel to what you do?
I mean, if simply just even liking and commenting makes my day. Like just liking, commenting, or even just sharing a post when we make an announcement, like goes a long way. We are very much a grassroots business. Like I said earlier, I didn't really exactly know what I was getting into when I started this business. And really up until this year, I had really no idea about grants. So this, when I tell you this business has been completely grassroots, from people talking to others, it has been. And if you could do that for me, I'd appreciate it, because I really love this business. And one of my biggest forces for growing it is the idea of getting books by BIPOC authors into as many hands as possible. That's really my dedication. Is this business doesn't really feel about me, it's about other people. So yeah, thank you.
And honestly, I can't thank you enough for what you do. It really literally warms my heart. And I'm so excited and so happy that you're doing this. So guys, please go out and support. Follow on all our social media, follow and subscribe. And if you're already getting a box for yourself, get something for somebody else. Get some Satisfiction for birthdays, Christmas. Fellas, if you're watching this, or wives, get your spouse, get your loved one. This is a great luxury treat. You can't go wrong with books and self-care. That's what we do, right? So please go and support and spread the word. And if you know NK Jeminsin, send them to Jolee.
Yes, I will die. It'd be a great death, though.
And then we'll have to get
revive me.
So we can have our special boxes and you can enjoy all the wonderfulness that comes from that. But thank you so much for being on here. One of the things that we do, if you could just leave us with a bit of blurred inspiration, some type of encouragement to anyone who may be listening, or dreamers or creatives and our readers out there.
Okay, let me think.
You've been dropping gems this whole time.
I would say failure, if you feel like you're failing, you got to recognize that failures are really just lessons to get you to where you need to be. And we're all going to have moments where we fail, but you need to go, that's your origin story, is going through those failures. And it's better there's this quote I saw that was fail fast, especially in business, just dive yourself into something and expect that you may not know everything, but the beauty is having the faith and the confidence in yourself to figure it out. So
it's beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And just being on here. And for everybody who is watching, definitely like this. Subscribe to our channel here, spread the word. And again, just follow Jolee everywhere. Subscribe, recommend the box, send the word to NK Jeminsin. And you can also join us on Fable. We have Book Club, where we actually have some of Jolee's references for our picks. that we may be reading this month in August. So join us for that. And stick around if you like the Recs. You can also join us on Instagram and the broadcast where we have all kinds of Recs reviews and community fun there. And just be sure to support so we can keep sharing amazing creatives and awesome bookish people. But thank you so much for tuning in. And Jolee, thank you so much for time.
This is a great conversation. Hopefully in the future, I can come back on, we can talk some more.
You are always welcome. And anything you need, please reach out. But thank you so much for being here. And until next time, novel creatures, happy reading.
Bye.